Good day, good afternoon, everyone. I'm so used to doing these in the evenings that I am still getting used to it. But certainly, welcome to this series of webinars that I have been hosting now for about 4 years. 4 years towards this month when the lockdown just began in March 2020. It is a special one for a few reasons, because I will be turning the light sort of inward at the finance industry, and more specifically, the organization I work at, which is RBC.
All opinions and views expressed by the speakers are not representative of views and opinions of RBC Dominion Securities, Inc. All information and opinions provided in this video are in good faith, but without legal responsibility.
Another thing that makes it different from others that I've done in the past is that it will involve a series of about 5 to 6 webinars with approximately 15 panelists across 8 different business units. So there was a lot of logistics and moving parts at play, but here we are today. I don't know if anybody noticed that rhyme that I did, at play today. Okay, I'll stick to my day job. Since the start of 2024, and if you don't mind, guys, just go on mute. I think there's a bit of background noise that I hear. Not sure from which one. Since the start of 2024, one change to the webinars has been the time of day, and that was based on feedback that was provided. The majority of attendees preferred a lunch and learn versus the previous 7 to 8 p.m. slot. So for this reason, I'm going to make an extra effort to stay on top of the clock so that everyone can be back at their desk at 1 p.m. sharp. The agenda is going to be as follows. We're going to start off with a little bit of a Slido poll, as it helps with a bit of a temperature check, and it helps the presenters better understand, who's in the audience, what's sort of important to them in this discussion. And for those if you are joining this for the very first time, welcome. Hopefully it will not be your last. My name is Orlando Lopez, formally introduce myself, and I am an investment advisor and financial planner with RBC Dominion Securities. I've been running these webinars now for, as I mentioned, about 4 years, and they range on a series of different topics. But the whole idea and the reason I do these is to help clients and even individuals in the community close what I refer to as the awareness gap. So it helps individuals to gradually learn and get exposed to different concepts, different strategies, and different opportunities that are out there that they may not have been aware of. So it's really to try to help you to figure out what you don't know. And outside of my work within at RBC, I'm always sort of, trying to assist within the community, kept busy with 2 little ones. I'm married, so, I'm always on the go, but I enjoy all of these things that are part of my life. And we're certainly honored to have our panelists with us, which they're going to get an opportunity to sort of introduce themselves, talk about their journey towards where they're at within the organization, and how we got to know each other. So there's certainly going to be a time for that, and then we'll have Q&A on the tail end. Certainly glad that Carlos was able to join. He is a community manager at the flagship RBC Plaza branch at 200 Bay. It's such a large branch that it's its own community, its own country. I need my passport whenever I'm going to go to that branch just so I can kind of get in. That's how big that place is. We've got Pawan, who's a mortgage specialist, and Dave Caacbay. I'd worked with Dave when I just joined RBC. We were in the same office prior to his current role. So certainly happy that they were able to make time out of their busy day to join us. To set the stage for the discussion, I'm going to start from the very beginning, and I mean the beginning of banking. It's something that can be traced back to 2000 BC with, first initially lending was done through temples, and it was a place to sort of store valuable items and grains and it's the priest that would sort of be lending these sort of resources. So, a bit of an interesting history in terms of, how the system of banking and finance sort of, initially showed up towards where we are right now, right? And as with most things, there's evolution and enhancements that take place. Now, to help with some of the concepts, because most things in finance are intangible services, I want to use a more tangible industry to sort of connect certain dots for us, and that's going to be the cruise ships and the cruise industry. So if you were to think about different cruise lines such as Carnival or Royal Caribbean, Norwegian, that would be like different banks. And we're going to be focusing on just one of those, which is the RBC ship. So you might hear me refer to that a few times. So on the RBC ship, and it might help you to know that, I have also worked on other cruise lines, other financial institutions, that is, in the past. And there are some subtle and sometimes obvious differences that, as you might agree, for example, just like with a Royal Caribbean or a Carnival, they're not quite the same in a number of ways. Although at the core, they both sail the ocean with restaurants, pools, and entertainment on board. Likewise, although RBC and its competitors all provide lending, aka credit products and investment products and solutions, it's been my experience that there are some subtle and obvious differences for the end client. And I'm going to come back to that point where, again, the initial areas of finance started with those core things. Core banking focuses on sort of lending at its core, and investments. When those deposits are in, what are the sort of options that can be provided? Now, on the right side of the slide, you're seeing what is a segmentation of the business units internally, which I want you to sort of visualize as different decks on the same ship. But I also want to acknowledge that it does not always translate to how you, the end client, sees the organization. For example, on a cruise ship, I would likely, communicate to my wife that, let's first have a lunch at the front of the ship, and then we're going to take the kids to the pool at the back of the ship. The captain of the ship would correct me and say that, no, you should say lunch at the forward, and then you're going to go to the pool at the aft of the ship, AFT. That's a technical term that, captains and crew will use. So sometimes we're saying the same thing, but different language. Now, sticking to the whole deck representing the business unit, deck one would be, I'd refer to it as more, let's say, personal banking. And let's equate borrowing to you going to a restaurant on a ship. In reality, there is a restaurant on each deck, as with banking. There is lending at each business unit. So for example, if you take a really close look at on the right, you're going to see in the description, lending gets referenced within the wealth management arm, right? It sort of mentions it here. So a suite of wealth, investment, trust, banking, and credit. Credit references to lending. Even in the capital markets area, there's also, it mentions sales, trading, lending, and financing of transactions. It doesn't specifically use those words in the personal and commercial side, but for sure, we all know that on personal banking, the sort of credit solutions, your mortgage, your credit card, loans, line of credit, those are sort of the lending facilities. So, I'm trying to really, the message I'm trying to get across is that you may have only been exposed to deck one of the ship, and we want you to know and appreciate that the other decks, they exist, and be aware that depending on your circumstances or stage in life, your taste buds might be better suited at another deck. So if deck one is buffet self-serve, in the future, you may actually want a sit-down fine dining experience on deck 8. This might be a high level of service, more hands-on, white glove service that gives you more value. Now, I've taken all this time just to set the stage for what is to come, because the subsequent webinars are going to tour you on the other decks, that is the other business units. So that is sort of what I wanted to get across. So now I'm going to switch gears and, that's enough from me. I want to now hear from you, the individuals joining. A few questions, again, via Slido. So if you've got your phones, you can scan that QR code or go to slido.com and input the number 1193615. And then we will, just a few questions. While you're getting prepared for that, at the end of the webinar, there will be another post survey that would appreciate you to also complete and how you found the webinar and also areas that you'd like us most, to assist you with in terms of your own finances. So here's the first question. What area of core banking are you hoping to have a better understanding of on this from this session? So again, you can find it by either scan the QR code or just going to slido.com. Let me just check one thing quickly here. So we've got so far investment seems to be. And then give it a little bit more. So slido.com 1193615. And it is sort of usually the more sexy part of finance, the investments. So not too surprising. Still 100%. Interesting. Okay. So let's move on to the next question. So the next one is, okay, we've got a little bit, okay, 60-40 now. Oh, look at that. Okay, even keel. All right, next question is, and I'll come back to see if anybody has voted. What area of the financial institution have you dealt with in the past? So this one, you can actually choose more than one. So you've got personal banking, commercial, wealth management, insurance, or capital markets. Okay. So, and I don't think for myself or the panelists that is too surprising. We certainly, there's a larger footprint in terms of personal banking across all in terms of branch locations. Okay, this is helpful. And which of the following business units are you hoping to better understand from this session, from this series? If you had to choose, which are you hoping to have a better understanding of? Insurance, capital markets, and again, I'll show you the dates in terms of the different days that will go on the different business units. Okay, give it a little bit more. Oh, capital markets. Wonderful. Okay. So certainly appreciate you sharing those. And without further ado, I want to sort of welcome Carlos. And I'll start off, and again, I'll sort of pull this up and down as we go. But if you don't mind, Carlos, probably just sharing your journey within the industry. Have you always been on the RBC ship? Have you been on other decks? And if so, let us know.
Yeah, absolutely, Orlando, and a pleasure to be here, and thanks for inviting me. I'll say that just like you, I've been in other ships in the past. So after I finished my university at McMaster University, that was a long time ago. I started working at BMO Bank of Montreal, and back then I was a financial advisor with BMO. And then I made a move to another financial institution, but it's not one of your, big five banks. It was actually a credit union. It was Meridian Credit Union, and I moved there as a financial advisor, and then became promoted as an assistant branch manager. We did fairly well. I did fairly well as assistant branch manager within Meridian. And then I got tapped on the shoulder by a friend who had gone to RBC, and this is someone who I respected quite a bit. This is someone who I admire and later became a mentor. And he said, "Hey, Carlos, RBC is looking for leaders, and I think you would be a great fit." I debated, I'll be honest, for a little bit, and then I realized, you know what, I want to be with folks like this individual, Michael. That was his name. That is his name. And lo and behold, I got an offer at RBC, and then I moved my way through branch manager roles, then into a regional enablement coach role. And in that role, in essence, it is an advice supporting role to our regional vice president in Vaughan. I was working in Vaughan, worked in Markham as well, and Durham region, where I'm from. And then I had the pleasure to work within national office, which was really great to see some of the strategy that we put into place for our teams, at the branches and the fields. And then I came here, which I am now the community manager at Plaza, which is the flagship branch of RBC. And we're looking at approximately 40 individuals here that roll up to me. And it's an incredible team. But that's been my journey so far. And it's been a great journey and one that I'll continue moving forward as I continue with RBC.
I appreciate that. And, I think having that variety, you have a certain lens or a certain perspective on how things are relative to, right? So I think that even probably likely will come out in how you're supporting clients and supporting your team, because you have an understanding of what's out there in the landscape. So you mentioned about 40 team members. Tell us about the typical clients that are served by your team then. I guess it's probably a better way to say it, served by your team, because they're the ones that directly interact with the clients and you might sort of support in other areas. But yeah, who would be the typical clients get served by your team?
Yeah, great question. So first and foremost, we'll start with our client advisors, right? So also known as tellers, right? But their official role and title within RBC is client advisors, and they will be the first point of contact for many clients that come in to do your everyday transactions. That might be a wire transfer. It might be a draft that you're getting ready for a large purchase. It might be bill payments. It might be, foreign exchange withdrawals, whether it's euros, whether it's US, and now with the HSBC transition, we have accounts both in euros, pounds, and also Hong Kong dollars, which is fantastic. So with that, those are the client advisors that help our everyday banking clients for those type of transactions, I'll say. Then we have our banking advisors and financial advisors. So at this level, if we think of that deck one, the majority of clients who are starting, who are fairly young, will be able to, in essence, have a financial journey, and with the assistance of our BAs and FAs, our banking advisors, financial advisors. However, just kind of like your physical health, or fitness health, I should say, financial health is very similar, I'll say. Some individuals are very disciplined and at times can be very disciplined within their finances, but as you accumulate more assets, more investments, there is more complexity, there's more life events, and that is when you need, in essence, the support of our specialists. And you'll hear from some of our specialists below. It could be an investment retirement planner, it could be a financial planner, or it could be a mortgage specialist. So through our doors, we could have individuals who at their current life stage might need that additional support, and that's when we engage our partners, our investment retirement planners, our mortgage specialists, or financial planners. So you have that level. And then there's another level that as a client you can go to, which is a private banking level. And I'm sure that Orlando will cover the private banking level in a different series. But then again, that is another world of its own. So that is, in a nutshell, retail banking here at RBC.
Yeah, wonderful. So, and again, yeah, you kind of alluded to the next deck, which in your role, you're moving and you sort of go upstairs sometimes, so you know what's going on at the other decks. You've got sort of context there. If need be, you can facilitate, and that's sort of where, your knowledge of experience allows you to determine when you need to bring in another specialist. And probably that's going to be a good one to get to the next question for you, which is maybe a specific kind of problems that or scenarios that are solved, or one that was most recently solved, right? So some of the things that, because that's the key thing that we solve problems for clients. So if there's anything that kind of came to mind, or some of the typical or more recent problem that was solved for a client.
I mean, there's many. There is. Where can I start? So I think the
problems in the world.
Yeah, but that's what we do, right? We help our clients and we help them solve through their financial goals or challenges, for that matter. I think identifying when you need help is very important, right? And it's great that you're having these series. So I'll give you a perfect example. We had a high-profile individual who was a doctor coming in, and this individual was always used to doing their own finances, like, basically coming in, seeing a client advisor and or managing their own personal finances in books. But it gets to a point where either A, you just don't have that time, or you don't have that expertise, and you really need to, and at times if you don't know, you just need to ask. You really need to, in essence, see whether one of our specialists will be a better fit for you than at the street retail banking level, meaning our banking advisors and financial advisors. And for this particular client, a financial planning desk, meaning having a dedicated financial planner, was truly the way to go. And then moving forward, more than likely a private banker. And the reason why I want to say this is I've been in banking for over 20 plus years. And I do recall the time where you would have a dedicated financial advisor for many years. We're talking 5, 6, 7 years. But the landscape has changed, where our banking advisors and our financial advisors are at the junior level, but they want to be promoted. They want to be managers just like myself, or they want to maybe go into a specialized role. So that individual they get a great connection with at the branch level for those 2 years may not be their third year, because they want to be promoted. They want to move up. And we do have career roles within RBC that, and some of my colleagues are in the call, investment and retirement planners, mortgage specialists and financial planners. And those individuals are in essence in those roles for a very long time. We're speaking decades, and it can be with you through that entire journey. So although I didn't cover a specific, say challenge or problem that was solved, I think knowing where you are and when you need further assistance is key in order for you to achieve your financial goals.
Yeah, no, appreciate that. Yeah. Maybe the final question before we move on, is there maybe a client or that would not be best suited for the services at deck number one or retail banking? Well, is that a hard question to answer?
Yeah, I think for the majority of clients, we should be able to help. Large majority of clients. The one that just came to mind is someone who walked in and this is more of a business question, because we do business clients as well. And on the business side, we do small business and then we can go into commercial. But this one particular client, what they were looking for was more of venture capitalist assistance. So in that regard, we at the retail banking level wouldn't be a best fit. So this client had an idea for a particular project. The business is not yet established, so they don't have the financials in the back for them to assist them with, and they needed quite a bit of money. So a venture capitalist, more or less, would be help. There are other ways that you can you get assistance and support as well through the government of Canada and the Canada Small Business Loan Program that can also help you, and we can help at the retail level with that regard as well. So to answer your question, Orlando, very few cases that we're not able to support, but our goal is to really quarterback and or guide our clients to the particular specialist.
Perfect. Wonderful. Thanks. And I think a good way to say it is that they never lose access to deck number one, right? So you kind of enter the ship that way and even exit the ship. So there's always going to be that ability to go up and, among the different decks, if we keep using that analogy.
Yeah.
So I'm going to move on to Pawan, who is a mortgage specialist, and probably same thing as well, if you don't mind talking about your journey throughout the industry to where you are right now.
Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon.
Yeah.
So, yes.
Your video is off, Pawan.
Let me try and restart.
Yeah, it was on earlier. There we go.
Wonderful. Yeah. Perfect. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Pawan. I'm a mortgage specialist at RBC. It's been 1 year already that I joined RBC. Previously, I was with Bank of Nova Scotia, known as Scotiabank, for 7 years. I have 10 years of experience in this industry. I started off as in customer service and then became a financial advisor, from there to a senior financial advisor. So I have a lot of experience when it comes to mortgages, investments, unsecured and secured lending. And after 7 to 8 years of experience, I realized my forte was going to more towards the lending side. So that's why I decided to join RBC as a mortgage specialist. And so far, the journey has been amazing. I work with a lot of, it's a mix of clients which are self-employed. I have clients that are have corporations, self-employed, high net worth individuals, and I've dealt with the scenarios wherein the clients they don't have good credit. I've helped them out as well. In general, overall, by now, in last 2 years, I've funded more than 100 deals. And through those, I learned a lot about how the mortgage industry works, the insights about what to look for in a deal. And I'm always there for my clients to support them, even if there are issues with the income part, if there's something wrong with the credit. My expertise would come into picture, wherein I would sit with them, guide them regarding what could have gone wrong previously, what I would guide them to have their credit fixed in case there's with the issues. Like RBC has so many good programs. Like we have a self-employed stated income program, which is industry totally apart from our gives us an edge from our competitors. And we do have a wealth accumulator program, which is a fantastic opportunity for high net worth clients, wherein your net worth, liquid assets, TFSAs, RSPs can actually help you qualify for the mortgage. Earlier, there was previously the banks used to only look at the income, but now the things have evolved, and now your net worth can actually help you qualify for your mortgages. So we do work with under the Wealth Accumulator program, and we also have newcomers program because Canada is about immigration, and it gets almost on. We are at the stage where we're getting 1 million immigrants every year. So considering that and taking that into picture, we do have a newcomers to Canada program. There's getting good amount of success in that as well. And they even take foreign income. So if you have clients, anyone who has an income from another countries, RBC does have some programs wherein we can even consider your foreign credit and foreign income. And the best part is we at RBC would always make sure that we value your business, and we will do our best to retain your business. So in case where it's not possible for RBC to lend the mortgage, we do have a B side, which is the alternate mortgage solutions, in which we would look into different other factors. Even if there's something wrong with the credit, there's been collections, or there's something that could have really messed the credit. Even in those cases, we do offer solutions which can help you get the business with an option to move the mortgage. And we have good programs where we can transfer over your mortgage from the B lender back to RBC as well.
Got you. So a couple of things I'll touch on that you mentioned. So self-employed individuals are some of the clients that you typically are helping, newcomers, as well as individuals with income from overseas, which would be newcomers. And how about two questions, then we'll put it two in one then. Maybe one of the most challenging situations that you're able to solve for. And the second part would be, you've mentioned individuals you help, but who would not be the type of, or the type of scenario that you would be brought in from a lending point of view. So that could be, when it comes to lending, what are the situations that that client is not the one that would be best suited for a mortgage specialist to come into the picture?
Like for us, we would always try to get things sorted, but in scenarios wherein the debt to service ratios to DDS and TDS are way beyond the thresholds, in those cases it becomes challenging for us as well. So clients where the liquidity is a big factor these days, and with the stress test, almost we're looking at 7.5%. That's the stress test as of today. That's the qualifying rate. If on a 3-year average, if it's 5.5, we have to qualify at 7.5%. So clients that have a lot of rental properties or who have already leveraged them, in those cases, it does become challenging in case we do not have liquid assets. So Orlando, you've been doing a wonderful job educating clients and about having liquidity and having a portfolio, which is very important because those are actually the ones that help you in cases where your debt service ratios have gone above the benchmarks. And if you don't have liquidity, then the banks are not willing to give that exception. And the reason why we are in this tough environment with the real estate is because of the stress test. It is very challenging at the moment to qualify. And you would have seen the highest volatility in the real estate where the prices have gone up like 1.5, 2 million. So those houses and real estate properties have higher volatility because it's the hardest ones to qualify. So yeah, liquidity definitely helps. And if you have multiple properties and your cash flow is negative, then it becomes challenging to get the approval if there are no liquid assets or if there is no additional income from the business, self-employment. If you don't see that, that becomes challenging.
Yeah. Okay, appreciate that. And two things I'm gonna repeat for everyone because this was something that when I joined RBC, again, I'd spent a long time at TD before. When I discovered that within the RBC mortgage program, which you touched on, if you're not able to actually get it approved here, you don't leave the client hanging. You leverage your network with a B lender, collaborate with them to get the client the financing, and then help the client to be able to sort of get a future mortgage at RBC, because usually the rates are better with a large lender like RBC relative to let's say a B lender, right? But what was different is that what I learned is that it's not sort of left up to the client where, okay, sorry, go figure it out, go find another lender. There's a formal process that you're assisting that client to get that solution and then working with them. So that was something where you're kind of helping them get the business elsewhere, but because you're looking at the client and saying, we're going to help you, even if it's not with us. So that I think is one of the things. And then the other part to touch on, which is helpful for people to know, if the income is not the only factor, because it happened in the past where it would be the client would then use supporting documents of their investment statements with that they've got. So if you got a portfolio at RBC, the Dominion Securities, that is also part of the variable to look at to say, well, okay, they've got the assets, they've got the liquidity from previous savings, even though the income might not be sufficient, maybe income has fallen, those sort of cases. So those are good. Yeah, I think it's good things that you touched on. So I appreciate that.
And I was mentioning about we try and that's the statistics that we were discussing. Almost 80 to 90% of the business that comes to us stays within RBC. So we would make sure no matter what it takes, we always willing to go above and beyond for our clients. And 90% of the business stays within RBC or it gets referred to the B side and gets approved. So that's our forte.
Got you. Appreciate that, Pawan. So Sir Dave, talk about your journey and, our paths crossed at the beaches location when I was sort of green around the ears with RBC. I was new. I didn't even know where the washroom was. That's how new I was.
It took some time for me too, Orlando, don't worry. But, Orlando, first of all, thank you so much for allowing me to be part of this advice event. and all the attendees as well. Thank you for, taking the time out of your day. I'm sure we're gonna, you'll get some good takeaways from this, right? So a little background about myself. I started my career in finance in 2010. I worked for a very high-profile portfolio manager in wealth management, at the level of BNN, Global Mail, Wall Street Journal, things like that. Did that for about 3 years, was looking after the business development, marketing, and also research. Did that for 3 years, then moved into the fintech space where, it was an online marketing company where we bridged lenders with financial institutions, or lenders with end users. Decided to come back to, banking. In 2017, I worked with Dominion Securities as an investment advisor, along with Orlando in the same office. During COVID, made the pivot and moved over to the retail side as an investment and retirement planner. So my designation is a financial planner. Essentially, I'm the quarterback, in reference to Carlos's comment earlier. Anything investment related that comes into the branch, I like to, do my deep discovery, and we could align them with particular roles. For example, a banking advisor, depending on their needs, right? We start off with the initial process of discovery, doing the initial investments, and anchoring them with a banking advisor when they're starting off in the banking world, if you will. As they get more developed, depending on the relationship, we anchor that with a financial advisor, where there's, different journeys, if you will, in their lifestyle, where they'll need that attention. For certain clients that are higher net worth, we would anchor them with a financial planner. Again, I'm a financial planner by designation, but there's a relationship financial planner that, supports the decisions we did in the financial plan and also in the investment strategy. And then when it gets to, more specific, higher net worth, wealth management, discussions, I anchor that with Orlando. So, as individuals or families' net worth grows, there's some particular attention that needs to be addressed, right? Orlando and his team over there could, look after more complex investment options such as stocks, ETFs, bonds, mutual funds, GICs, etc. So, and again, Orlando, you work with a lot of business owners as well, right? Mm-hmm. So, in terms of that aspect as well, Orlando has a specific, niche, if you will, in terms of IPPs and other business structures as well. So, in a nutshell, that's how I operate as an investment and retirement planner.
Yeah, and then in terms of, and you'll come across, because you'll collaborate with the mortgage specialists, and that's kind of where knowing, and that experience kind of helps, because you've been at different parts of the industry, different parts of the organization, so you sort of know, based on the situation, when you'll need to pull somebody in to kind of do a teamwork, right? Because again, I think, I use the analogy of the cruise ship, but there's so many ways we can kind of describe it, right? Whether it might be in the medical field that, there's a collaboration between nurses and doctors, right? Anything in particular that comes to mind as maybe a recent scenario that you were sort of in front of, and then sort of that you sort of dealt with and helped that client, solve a particular need or problem as a case study example?
Yeah. From time to time, it's part of life. Death is a scenario, and sometimes dealing with clients and they're the executor, for example, and it can be overwhelming both emotionally and financially, right? Where the BA and FA can transact to a certain point dealing with their estate team in terms of closing accounts, but they do need that extra guidance at that end of the day. And that's where I come in, explain the situation, and sometimes the responsibilities as an executor. Again, it does take some time. We do have an executor kit that we give to clients, and at the end of the day, it's peace of mind for them, right? Knowing that they have this resource and also a human resource as well, which is, the branch. Yeah.
No, that's an uncommon or an unfortunate part of life. So that, we all go through. We'll go through family members, and there's, yeah, definitely, we all see it across the board, and just sort of then having that dedicated, just like even Carlos mentioned, where there's that individual that can be present throughout the entire phase or the journey, as opposed to it may have started with person A and then person B, person C is having to kind of catch up. So I think with just also help clarify for individuals, you know, Carlos had mentioned there are certain roles that are typically career roles. You know, my role is one of those. It's not a stepping stone, if you will. Majority of the time, not that people don't change and have life, you know, make certain career decisions, but it's very common that individuals will stay in this role for the long haul, right? You know, dentists are not really moving on to many other things. They stay a dentist and they sort of run their practice. And those are the sort of roles that typically allow for the individual to have a certain sort of high level of service, more consistent, more predictable, because there's that relationship that's built over time. I find it's one of the most underappreciated parts of you know, of finance, that yes, there is the technical pieces and the money element, but then the relationship or the emotional part is something that we can't sort of underscore as well.
And Orlando, if I could just add, you know,
sure.
You know, we are Canada's largest bank, and you know, we're Canada's largest bank for a reason, right? We're able to, you know, advise clients and provide solutions and partner them with the right advice and the right person at the end of the day. So, you know, that's, I think that's what really separates us apart. And I have, you know, family and colleagues that work with the Green Bank and the Red Bank, and, you know, they always comment that, you know, RBC is really great at partnering and, you know, being in front of the client's path.
Yeah.
You know, that's what we try to do, and lead with advice.
Yeah, you know, and I'm going to say one other thing, and then we'll open up for Q&A. Here's one thing that I definitely will say, because when I started off the conversation, I said you might find certain subtle differences across the different, you know, Carnival versus, you know, Royal Caribbean or Norwegian. One of the things, if I use that analogy to really paint a picture, within the organization, what is encouraged and is part of the culture is a lot of collaboration. So even if the person is sort of at deck number one, there's a lot of collaboration where the staff member on deck one will work with the person at deck two, deck three. They're not just sending the person up. And what do I mean by that? For one client, I might be collaborating with Pawan and Carlos and Dave. For another client, I might be partnering with a different mortgage specialist, because again, it depends on the client. So what's one of the things that's very unique or very different, it is sort of one, who does the client already have an existing relationship with, and do we kind of come in to complement? The other models are sort of more where it is more static, not as dynamic, right? So that's something that I think makes a huge difference. There's a lot of cross-pollination of experts that exists and that occurs within RBC that I've observed. So at this point, I'm going to open up for Q&A, because again, like I mentioned, I'm just trying to make sure everybody can kind of get back to their desk on time. So there's a raise hand feature, and in the meantime, I'm going to, while I'm kind of keeping an eye out for any questions, I'm just going to share one other thing on my screen here. So any questions for any other panelists, don't hesitate to just sort of raise your hand. And while we're doing that, I'm just going to share that the upcoming or the other sort of sessions, or dates to keep in mind. Next week, Tuesday, we're going to kind of more touch on wealth management twice, then insurance, and beyond banking. So keep those dates in mind, and you'll get sort of the invites. And let me just go back to see if there's any question that sort of came up. Put them here. So whether you're on your mobile or on a sort of computer, there should be a sort of a tiny little hand that indicates Just raising your hand. I'll then be able to unmute you. Okay, we've got one. Well, welcome. Welcome, first of all. We've been welcoming all the HSBC, former staff and clients to RBC. I would say it applies to everyone. So these webinars that I've been doing have been predominantly external for clients and the community, but I've also felt that I'm a curious mind. I'm always trying to learn and share. I don't think that it would hurt an individual who is part of the industry or part of the organization to also take a tour of the other decks of the ship, whether they've been with the organization for 10 plus years or 15. I think that it's such a large one that it's not uncommon that, you can be an expert, you only know what's on your deck, but I think it's good to be aware of the other areas. So I think anyone can benefit from what we're trying to do here, which is to sort of shed some light on the different facets of the organization. So for sure, big help for non-industry folks, for clients. That's what this webinar is predominantly sort of catered to. But I think there's also a unique opportunity for individuals to, one, refresh your knowledge because things change, right? There's an evolution that is occurring. So I commend you for joining as well and being curious. Thank you, Raphael. I'm gonna keep an eye out for, let me just see if there's any other raised hands. And it is, we still have a little bit of time before the hour.
I'm shocked you don't have any interest rate questions.
So the Bank of Canada did report today, nothing's changed. So we remain at 5%. But I wanted to ask you this, Orlando,
Sure.
State of the Union in terms of investments, where do you see the market now, where it's going, what do you do for clients? Just your overall, feel.
So what I've been doing over the last, for this year in particular, being an election year, I've been tending, just from experience, typically election years can be a little bit, there can be some waves, if you will, that kind of hit the ship as you get closer to it, when there's the uncertainty of, well, exactly who's going to get in, right? And which policies are going to sort of come into fruition. So it's always been a year that I tend to lean, if we're on the fence, being a bit more cautious in terms of how we position things until we can kind of see a bit more around the corner, around the bend. So, I lean towards that angle, particularly in election years, and then we can sort of post-election, be a little bit more confident. Okay, we kind of know what the next 4 years are, have a better sense, and not just us in terms of the client and the advisor, but even just the market itself. The sentiment that is out there, it can drive or can impact, what the viewpoint will be for business going forward. So after doing this for a number of years, I don't get surprised if the election year, as it gets closer, can get a little bit rocky. So that's usually how I approach that year, And again,
that being said, you're always looking at, clients, the environment, looking at clients' assets and investments at all times, and navigating through the ups and downs. And the most important thing is not making changes based on news, right? It's a longer term focus.
Yeah, it's a huge team approach. So there's myself. There's counterparts that will be looking at the different positions. So some are focused on the Canadian equity or the Canadian companies that might be held. Another team will be focused on the U.S. As an example, real example, I actually reached out to a client yesterday because he had exposure. Again, there was a personal interest in some exposure a few years ago towards the electric vehicle industry. And I was sort of taking a look at the position. It was an ETF that we had used to sort of satisfy that need. And it hadn't been really doing what we had hoped. The electric vehicle space hasn't been, sort of it's almost like the eclipse kind of didn't build up to the hype a little bit, right? So I kind of brought it up to him, and I'm saying, yeah, here's it's not really doing what we'd have expected. So I'm going to get some more information, and then we can kind of decide, do we continue to hang in there, or do we trim it a little bit, right? So, those are some of the things that, again, one, I'll do, but also there's a huge team effort, because I always let clients know that, there's only so many hours in the day for one individual to really keep an eye on all the different moving parts regionally and industry-wise. So I employ a team approach, big time, big time, so that changes can be made efficiently, even if I might be doing a webinar. If there's a need to make a change for position, it can take place if I'm not fully available for whatever reason, right? That's a key part of how I run my practice, efficiency, and that it's not just dependent on Orlando being at his desk. So that's how I run the ship, if you will. Well, thanks for that question. And let me see if we've got any other one. If we don't have any other questions, then we can probably sort of close off sooner rather than later. I'm just going to share one other quick thing here for everyone in terms of one. I'd already shared a slide about the upcoming dates, and there will be that survey at the end. Feel free to reach out if you've got questions. I always sort of make myself available for providing a second opinion on a number of strategies. Could be investment related, could be estate planning or tax. And then my network is there if we need to go a little bit deeper. The other thing I would also say is, because this is a series, we want you to sort of also share with any other person that you think might benefit. So if you see on the slide here, if you came across it on LinkedIn, there's a little share button that allows you to invite others to the upcoming series. So first time we're sort of doing, sort of such back and forth kind of interconnected series. And next week, we're going to sort of have some colleagues from the commercial banking area, some commercial banking managers, some mergers and acquisitions, and also group benefits. So I think that's going to be an eye opener for folks in terms of better understanding some of the other things that RBC does for business owner clients beyond just lending, right? That's something that I think will be pretty eye opening. So when we talk about business owners that might be in a position that they will want to sell their business or buy a business, there's a team that kind of helps that individual sometimes find a buyer for the business, and they might know the client might be the one wanting to sell, but that network allows them to sort of find potential buyers. So, sort of realizing that it's beyond just the typical sort of like, okay, provide financing and that's it. There's many other areas that, and you'll also hear on the group advantage side, how that's an area that helps business owners with providing retirement benefits for their clients. So group RSPs, also something that I think not many individuals know. So I'm really trying to get people to go to the corner of a ship that they've either never been to or didn't know existed, and just to be aware that, hey, yeah, at this part of the ship, I was going to say the back of the ship, but I'm supposed to say the aft, right? That part of the ship, take a second look if you haven't before, just so you know ahead of time. And with that said, I'm probably going to take one more quick review to sort of see if there's any other questions. And if not, I appreciate you joining. I hope you were able to, come across something new, some new nugget of information that can be applied, if not today, at least in the future, right? The goal is to help individuals sort of uncover what they don't know, and with that, we'll bid farewell. Thank you, Carlos, Pawan, and Dave for taking time, and I'll see everybody next week, Tuesday at 12. Take care. Bye.